Hey, welcome everyone. It's great to see you. Welcome to the Soul Report Live. I'm your host, Dr. Douglas James Cottrell. It's Monday, August 25th, 2025. And as always, we're here to bring a little light into those hidden truths and spiritual insights and timeless wisdom that guide us through these extraordinary times. Are you ready? Okay, well, tonight we're going to explore the deeper currents beneath the world events. We're going to discover how spiritual laws are at work in our daily lives. We have an excellent episode. We're going to talk about AI and AI robots and share special information on awakening your inner awareness to these upcoming events. This is your place for truth. Here on the Soul Report, we are setting the vision, the soul centered understanding for you, my friends, in understanding the world as we know it. So settle in. I'm here with my good friend and co host, Les Hubert. Open your mind and prepare to journey with me into the mysteries of the soul and the destiny of humankind. Welcome to the show, Les.
Thank you, Doug. Tonight we're going to be talking about the dynamics of love. Why did Yeshua say to love God first? And with that in mind, how do we go about loving ourselves and others?
Well, if you can love God Almighty, you're loving yourself. We're all creatures of God. You know, we all have a soul within. But how many times do we actually love God? I mean, embrace God as a real sentient being that's in the same room with us. You know, God is not deaf, dumb, or blind. But there are many people who proclaim to be believers who forget or they don't understand that God is not deaf, dumb, or blind. And so they kind of like maybe repent on Sunday, but Monday to Saturday they get away with all kinds of silly things in life. But if you love God, then you know whatever befalls you, there is a purpose for it. And to love God with every cell of your being, that is the mission of your soul for your entire lifetime. And so, love God with all your heart and all your mind, all your soul takes on a more importance than just words. And so, here we are by an avatar, a spiritual master, a divine soul, the first one that found a way to conquer death in order to lead us, humankind, into salvation. And we're not talking about religious beliefs and understandings and like the like. We're talking about our soul finding a way, a path through that forest or jungle that we have up until that time not achieved or accomplished. And so he was the first one. Yeshua, the Christ, the Messiah, was the one that led us, is leading us, and has shown us the way out of the quagmire we're in. And so this particular being that was highly spiritually developed didn't come on chariots and fire and flames to announce his presence. He came quietly into the world and lived his life as a human being. Following in the footsteps of his father, he was a tradesman as a carpenter, listened to his mummy. He obeyed whatever she said. He was a good boy. Remember the first miracle that's recounted in the good book was that his family ran out of wine at a family wedding, and his mother came over and said, "Hey, son, do your thing." And he said, "Mom, it's not my time yet. It's not my time to be public." But anyway, he pleased his mummy, and he produced the best wine at the end of the party where all the patrons were quite happy at the time. But somebody in the back came by and said, "Hey, why did you save the good stuff to the last? Usually, we give out the cheap stuff at the last when people are a little, like happy." But he did the best he could to please his mummy. So he came into the world acting as a good son and grew into the spiritual being, the avatar, the saint, the illuminating light that he was. And so he's giving us words to do the same. If you love God with every cell of your body, then whatever befalls you, you can survive it by saying, "All right, God, I'm not going to abandon you. I'm not going to turn my back. I'm not going to disbelieve, even to the point of your death." And if you can believe that, and you have the faith to believe it, and you have the evidence that you've learned along the way that strengthens your belief and strengthens your faith, then even at the moment of death, you won't be afraid. You might not like how you're going to die.
Hmm.
Nobody, I've ever heard people say, "Oh, I can hardly wait to get to heaven." And then I say, "Yes, but it's great. Death is beautiful, but dying's not." So that's one of those, like I got to go to the hospital and have an operation. Oh my God. After the operation, oh wow, look at I can move my arm, my leg, whatever. It's wonderful. But going through and getting the healing part, that's terrible stuff. Well, that's part of life. And I don't know how bad that is. People sometimes go to sleep and they're gone. The soul leaves the body. And I think that's one of the things, a blessing for somebody that's loving God. So to love your God with every cell, every part of your body, every cell of your body, you can then look at yourself and forgive yourself. You can then love yourself because we really don't. We kind of, we're too tall, we're too short, we're too thin, we're too thick, we're too this, we're too that. And that is a condemnation of the temple. This body is your temple. In other religions, they have hats and headgears to show that they represent, and by wearing those headgears or hats or whatever's on their head, that they understand that this body is a physical temple for the divine soul within. And hopefully the soul will wake up. Well, that gets into another kind of struggle within, the ego versus the spiritual, and back and forth. As you get older, sometimes you get wiser, sometimes you don't. But the point is, you begin to understand the difference between this temporal, physical temple we have and the immortal, spiritual soul that you are. That's who you really are. So, coming to understand that is coming to understand God. And when you love God, you obey. There's no ego that says free will and free choice. No, I'm not going to do that. you know, I'm not going to go fasting, or, I'm going to drive my car as fast as I want, or I'm going to eat whatever I want. And then people become diseased. They're out of easement with life, and then they're like
Sure.
paying a doctor money, or they're going to a therapist, or they're coming to people like me to get some information to find their way.
Hmm.
Well, when you're in harmony and you love God, you have dreams. You are accepting of the spiritual information that comes to you. You learn not to doubt. So this
True. Yeah.
answers a little bit on the philosophy, but back to love God with every soul, every cell of your body, that your soul loves God. That's learning to love not just what we call corporal love or life in the world love. We're talking about a divine love, and that's called unconditional love.
Oh,
And
okay.
that's a hard one.
Hmm. Well, so the question is, and just I've had this question asked of me as well, is that if we're supposed to love God with all our minds and all our hearts and all our souls, what's left for us? I mean, if you're giving all and literally all, then how do you have love for yourself? Or does God transmute that and bring that back to you, and then you convert that into self love?
Mm, interesting point of view. So love is a commodity. Give me a handful of love, Les. Come on, give me two handfuls of that. Okay, so that's a good point of view, or a good question, because you see, love is like a clouds in the sky. They're always there. Sometimes they're scattered, sometimes they condense, sometimes they're powerful. Love is not a commodity. It's more like an envelope. It's more like a cocoon. And you're in this essence, in love, in a cocoon that radiates out like light. When you look at a light bulb shining in the ceiling, the light's going everywhere, right? It doesn't just go in one direction unless it's a flashlight, or unless
Right.
it's got some sort of covering on it. It goes everywhere. It's illuminating. And so the question is, if you love God with all of your heart, what about yourself? Well,
Mm.
that's the ticket. You love yourself by loving God because you
Oh.
are part of God.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so you have to think of yourself as, like the internet, right? God is the cloud somewhere. I mean,
Okay.
nobody knows where the cloud is. I don't know how they came up with the name cloud. They should have come up with universal, whatever,
Yeah.
But the point is, when we say the cloud, oh yeah, yeah, the cloud. It's all my stuff is up in the cloud. I have all my stuff up there. I have all my photos up there. Well, from my perspective, we have a different name for that, and it's called the Akashic Records, or the Akashic Field, or the Tree of Life, or the Celestial Library. So you see, us spiritual folks, we were way ahead of ourselves, saying that every thought, every word, every deed that you do, my friends, is recorded somewhere up there in the celestial records, which again, Akashic field, Akashic records, whatever dimensions, heavens above. Okay, so to understand that is kind of like God is everywhere. Your consciousness is everywhere. You're plugged in everywhere. And because you're plugged in everywhere, you're also plugged into yourself. But here's the ticket:
Okay.
you have to take the steps to be illuminated. It's like you're an everglow, you're a little glowing light. And as you go through lifetimes, experiences, that light becomes brighter and brighter and brighter. And you become aware of who you are. You become very aware. And then you become self realized. And then you become more realized and fully realized. And then you become an avatar, a spiritual being in a physical body, having the best spiritual life one can have in a physical body. And that's when you're illuminated and you understand unconditional love, because you are unconditional love. If you look at all the spiritual leaders, they had their times when they became political leaders. Moses, for instance, Muhammad, peace be upon him, religious leaders in India, and avatars that would be in charge of organizations like Buddha had temples and whatever. I know the whole idea is detachment in Buddhism. I don't want anybody to criticize me. I understand, but there were temples and there were monks and there were organizations, the same as in any organization, religious organization, if you will, of all the different faiths or beliefs. And somebody has to control that,
Hmm.
a loving spiritual way. Well, there's a lot of contention. I mean, Pope Francis was pretty upset with things in Rome after he came from Argentina, and I'm not me to speak for him, but I heard him in a lecture one day saying the church had disease, the disease of vanity,
Oh,
the
wow.
disease of conceit, the disease of self-importance. And when I was listening to him, I just tuned into the show. I wonder, who's he talking about? And then I realized he was talking about the cardinals and the Vatican itself.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And as he saw it, as instead of a love, there were all these different fragments or diseases or diseasement. So, getting back to the question about love is everywhere, and as one becomes illuminated, they become like a light bulb, 360 degrees in all quadrants. That's what unconditional love is all about. And along with that comes all the things about love: patience, tolerance, forgiveness, on and on. Because when you're totally aware of things like an avatar, you're aware of the weaknesses in your friends and neighbors. And it takes a lot to forgive some of the people that are closest to you, especially when they think you don't know. But remember, there are people that think God is deaf, dumb, and blind as well. Keep that in mind, my friends. Okay.
So, was it Yeshua's way of saying that by loving God first, it kind of keeps our egos in check? Because I've met, and I'm sure you've met people, and we see it all the time, on the internet, on TV, and these people that love themselves a great deal, but they kind of forget to love others. And you see, they have all the trappings of, they have the wealth, the power, the fame, but yet they really don't seem to convey a love for their fellow souls. Is that the reason? Another reason why Yeshua wanted us to love God first, to keep that ego kind of at bay?
You see this hat? I can still wear it. Whoever I am is not going to my head. And you see, that's the thing about spiritual illumination, because you begin to control the environment. You begin to become somebody important, shall we put it. You rise to spiritual importance because of your ascension within the ranks to becoming a spiritual leader. And it goes right to the point that the disciples, who were Christ's best friends, they argued with him, but he was their teacher. And he had that ceremony just before he was crucified. And he took them down and he sat them down and he washed their feet.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
And he said, remember, I am the rabbi and I'm doing this to you, the least of you, which he was attempting to show them that the more important you are in your own mind, the more wonderful and great and amazing you are in your own mind, the further away you're going from the path.
Oh,
And the answer to that one is the greatest master of among us becomes the greatest servant for us. And he was attempting to show as above as below, the macrocosm, the microcosm. The growth of a divine person becomes the greatest servant, so that you don't get yourself out of sorts. And when the time came and he was in front of those terrible judges and those deceitful lawyers and those unbelieving religious beings, I was going to call them magi, but whatever that's not really a magi, is a different thing. But those judges and lawyers and religious authorities at the time, that's the word I was looking for, they wanted to get rid of him because he was taking up their market share. More people were following him because he was telling the truth. And they were afraid that they were going to, like, quote unquote, go out of business. Oh my God. Well, that's all the trappings of, as you become important, as you become beloved by God, as you continue to take your steps and come closer and closer to God, there's a whole lot of people behind you. And they come from all ranks, backgrounds, belief systems, and they're full of bad stuff. But inside there's light. And so a master among us, it's very hard, because we talked about this before in a previous show. When you're in the world, you're full of aggrandizement. How much do I have? I have more than somebody else, and I'm better than they are. I'm more important because I have a higher position in society. Therefore, I am better than they are. Forgetting there, but for the grace of God, when you look at a homeless person, there I am as well. There go I. So if we come to that understanding that in the worldly things of accomplishment and materialism, as Buddha would say, detachment is the freedom. Because when you have stuff, you got to take care of it, right? You got to watch out somebody doesn't take it away from you, or on and on it go. You lose it. So you become loving of your stuff. And when you love God, it's like God's above me here in the painting. You love the universe. You love the consciousness. You become aware of abundant and unconditional love. And that's the thing. Like, when you're wrapped up and you feel so nice and warm and you got no worries, nothing on your mind, nobody's bugging you, you know you're okay. That love sustains you forever. And so to be not of the world means to be loving of God and not worried about the trivial things about what you have or don't have. Have you ever noticed that we always think we need more stuff? And then it hangs up on a hook
yeah.
in the garage, like,
Yeah.
oh my God. Look around, everybody. all that stuff you got in your room, under your bed, and you're finding little nooks and crannies to stuff it in. You don't need it, but you think you do. But if you believe in God, then you will know that whatever you need will be provided. There was a story about Christ. They were walking along, and a man was in need of a cloak. So Jesus gave it to him. And somebody said, "But Master, one of the so Master, you're going to need it later." And he said, "Oh, don't worry about it." And later on, the man came back and gave it back to him because he found his,
Ah,
the one he missed, and he then came back and gave the Yeshua back his. That's some story like that in the book. So we think we need things, but when you're in harmony with God, everything you want or need will appear in front of you. And that's one of the magical things of faith. Faith is built upon belief, and belief is built upon evidence. And as we teach at Many Mansions International Ministries, ministries all over the world, when I tell people about this, when I teach them how to do these things, I'm giving them the secrets, aren't I? Well, the secrets are everywhere, but things happen to them. They get the parking spot where they need it in front of the grocery store. Somebody comes and helps them when they need it, when they maybe do something outside and they've dropped something. Or I saw this in New York. There was a lady, she was of royal blood, and we were on the street. She was in a nice business dress and tight fitting around the hips and that, and high heels. And she was telling me about how she leaves little crumbs on the end of her table for the angels all the time. This is we're talking here serious people on, Manhattan, right? Right down in the center of Manhattan in the business district. And as she says, it happens to me all the time. I find money all over the place.
hmm.
She's a very wealthy lady, very successful, had her own business. You've seen her on TV, some of you. Anyway, we're walking across the street, and she's kind of struggling with her high heels and this tight dress. And in front of us, where it was, as she just said that, were all these brand new pennies.
Oh, wow.
There was about 60 or 100 of them on the ground. And she said, "See what I mean?" And I
Wow.
looked down, and then she proceeded to wiggle down and pick them up. I naturally assisted, I was a good helper, and I'm going like, I'm gobsmacked, I'm going like, "Oh, this is amazing." And then as we're walking a little farther, we had all the pennies, she put them in her purse, I had some in my pockets, and she said, "See, it happens all the time. I just, I talk about leaving crumbs on the table for the angels." And then she looked up, she says, "Look there. There was $20 on the sidewalk this time."
Wow.
So again, she got down, ladies with high heels would know what I mean, and they were pretty big high heels, and she was in a business outfit, so it was form fitting, and she went and picked it up and put it in her purse. And I looked at her, and I'm going like, wow, that's amazing. But she was very generous to help people in a business way. And again, she would be having expensive dinners or whatever, and she'd always put some crumbs on the end of the table for the angels to get.
Wow.
So the question is, yeah, did the waiter come and sweep it up, or what? We don't know, but they were left there for the angels, and I'm sure they appreciated the offer. But the point is, when you love God, you can walk and go anywhere and not be afraid,
Yeah.
and know everything is going to be provided for you.
Mhm.
When the people in monasteries go out, they go out with a bowl under their robe, and it gets filled up every day. They have no doubt that the people in the community or village, whatever, are not going to be generous. And for that, they pray for those people in the temples, and they do spiritual things and help the people in the village or the community, like I do. We pray for people all the time that we don't know, or we have spiritual requests at our services on Sunday. And there are people we've never met, we don't know. And we send them virtue healing energy, like Yeshua taught us to do. And people have had miraculous recoveries. Now, we also know that when it comes your time, there's no miracle or magic that's going to stop your death.
Hmm.
It's going to happen, but we can pray for a peaceful transition. We can pray for all your relatives to come over and say, "Hi, we're here. Come on home." it's really nice over here. Where you're coming from, you know, we've been there, so come on, the party's on this side. So as you become aware of these things, you become unafraid
Hmm.
and you have peace in your mind. And then whatever befalls you, you're not provoked emotionally. You have emotional maturity and you are confident in your life. And you know that God Almighty is watching over you.
Hmm.
Just like any parent watches over their child and allows their child to make the mistakes to grow up to be the special person that they become, God is the same with us, all of us. Even those kind of, souls that are still got a little stain on their on their spiritual part, and they have to learn how to get by and overcome. Because what we're talking about here is temptation. And when you get into the spiritual world and you have people who admire you and people who put you up on a pedestal and people think you're important, if it goes to your head, then you are tempted by money, by sex, by extremes and indulgences, by abuse of your authority or power. And what's happening? You're starting to go what?
Hmm.
Off the path, off the mark. And then some karma comes along, whack, and it
Hmm.
puts you back on the path. That whack is pretty tough. And the more diversion you are with preaching the path and the righteousness, and the more you go off the path, bam, the harder that lesson is, or that process is that teaches you the lesson. And you get back on the track and you go, please forgive me. I am so repentful. I'm so sorry. And then this is where learning to love yourself is. You you learn to regret, and then you learn to repent. And repenting wipes out the karmic debt.
Oh, all
But
right.
it takes a long time. It's hard to overcome the things you do in your life that you regret. So,
Hmm.
if you want to have a perfect life, do everything so that you never have any regrets. Easy said, hard.
Yeah, right.
Okay. So that's about loving yourself, though. If you can learn to love yourself, to forgive yourself when you've done something that you're ashamed of, or something you ought not to have done, but now you learn from it and you never do it again, you'll be okay. And it takes
Yeah.
a long time to remember humans as we know humans. Remember, you're human. That's why they put erasers on the end of pencils. That is the way in my day.
I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense.
That
You know,
was,
it's in my own life. I know I had a friend of mine who he was very successful. He was also very materialistic. And became very wealthy. And he had multiple businesses all over the country. But he let it get to him, and he ended up coming down with lymphoma. And then I was with him on the. We thought he was going to die that day. And he looked at me and he said, he said, Les, you see all this all around me, all my houses and my cars. I mean, he said, the only thing that matters is love. He said, for God and love of others and love. And that night, it was a miraculous recovery. He just flipped right around and he started coming out of it. And like, wow, he finally got it. And he got a second chance. It was amazing. Absolutely amazing.
and that's why that whole lesson happened to him. He was overwhelmed with things, physical things, got to the point like Job on the ash pile. Remember that story?
Mm,
Likewise, he believed his spiritual importance was wrapped up in all his personal belongings, and he lost everything. And
mm,
there he was sitting on the ash pile, a pile of bricks, the garbage. He was out in the laneway all by himself, just like your friend. And then he realized, wait a minute, my belief is in God. My love is in God. And then the story goes on as the parable. Job got all his stuff back. It's like those Western songs, right? Yeah, those you play the record backwards, you get the dog back, you get the horse back, you get the woman back, you get your money, you get your ranch back. I'm no, please don't send me any nasty emails. That's a joke about how you play records backwards and you get all the things that you said. So say you lost. Okay, I apologize if anybody's taking offense, but don't. But the point being is that Job was in the same point, and that's the lesson in the good book. All the lessons of life are there if you look for them. And your friend, that was a wonderful story, and that you're absolutely right. He got to that point where he said, everything doesn't matter. The richest man in the world, when it comes to the last day of his life, can't buy one more day or one
Mm.
more hour or one more minute. Cannot. And so the wisdom is my faith and my love is not in things, it's in the divine. And that is why you should love God with every cell of your being. Because you get to that point, somebody does something bad to you, you try not to let them steal from you and things like that. But you don't go out and kill them.
Right.
You stole my car, I'm going to kill you. No, 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 no. You say, you stole my car. Well, I'll get another one.
Hmm. Hmm.
Or you say to God, please send my car back. And the car stalls, somebody finds it, whatever. Happened to my son. Somebody stole his car one day at the movie place in the big plaza. I saw it going down a certain street and I saw it stopped. And what happened is the car started to overheat and smoke coming up under
Oh.
the front of the hood. So they abandoned the car and they left it running in the middle of the street.
Oh, wow.
Somebody called the police and they said, "Hey, your car's over here." We went and picked it up.
Ah.
Okay, so there's ways. Now the car never smoked and steamed and got hot before, and the person was I'm going to say this for the first time. He left a little trinket that was really really important to him.
Oh, no.
He left it on the floor of the car.
Oopsie.
You see, it was a symbolic thing of his spiritual being, and he left it on the floor. I
Wow.
still have it in the garage on a nail. You could say
Wow.
we're hanging around, we got that guy's soul on yeah,
Wow.
I'm not trying to make fun, but that's a true story. He lost something extremely important to him because he was trying to take my son's car, which was really important to him. And
Wow.
like I said, divine intervention, the car kind of had a radiator, the kind of steam coming out would look like
Yeah.
that.
Oh,
Ne-
yeah.
I don't know what it was to this day. It never did it after that. And we went and got his car back. However,
Mm.
so the point is of the story is that no matter what's in front of you, and I'm not here to tell you that I live this perfectly myself. I have worries. I have difficulties. I have responsibilities that only I can do. And then when you realize that responsibility comes in two forms. One, you can hand it off to somebody, like doing your taxes. You hand off the responsibility to the accountant.
Hmm.
No problem. But there comes a time when you can't do that. You can't, for cutting your grass, you can have the responsibility of getting the local kid to come and cut the grass.
Hmm. Hmm.
Okay, you can do those things, handing off that responsibility. It comes to a point where you cannot hand off the responsibility to anybody else. And knowing this, my friends, if you're in the chat, think about this and ask each other. If you're in the chat, when is it that when you can't hand off responsibility to anybody else, what's that called? And I'm going to tell you now, it's called duty. So if you can ascertain that it's your duty, nobody else can do it for you. You can't hand it off. You can't buy somebody or pay somebody to do it. You have to do it yourself. Then no matter how difficult it is, get on it and get it done yourself. Because
Hmm.
nobody else is going to do it. Why? Because it's your karmic lesson. It's your spiritual lesson. It's something you have to do. And the sooner you learn that in life, the more successful you will be. You won't
Hmm.
procrastinate. You won't blame other people. You won't find fault. You won't find ways and means to avoid it, which we all do. But you'll say, I got to get this done. My responsibility. I got to go out and wax the car. Okay, I'm getting her done. And then you get it done and you feel good.
Yeah. Yeah, you do.
There might be other more serious things about that, like going and having a confrontation with somebody, or trying to work out something that's difficult to work out with, or making some amends. A story just a little while ago where we had somebody in a family, there was grandparents involved and grandkids involved, and there was tension between the family. And with some direction, they made peace. And now the kids have parents and grandparents that they never had before. And so that's how families come together. It's difficult, it's not easy, but it's the right thing to do. And then everybody's happy thereafter. But until somebody takes the responsibility, the duty, and steps in to make amends, what happens? The environment just keeps going in circles. So it's like everything else. When you realize it's your duty, step up, get it done. Right or wrong, by the way. If you're right and it works out, great. If it's wrong and it doesn't work out, great. You stepped up to do it. And that's all you need to do to understand that lesson. It never comes back in your life. That once that lesson is met, never comes back. So again, knowing the difference between responsibility and duty is loving yourself to the point where you forgive yourself, or the point you're a little tough on yourself and you say, come on, Douglas, get it done. Nobody else is going to do this for you. Nobody can, should, or ought to. It's yours to do. And once you get to that point, then life becomes a little easier.
All right. After a short break, we will be back with news and views, and this is going to be pretty interesting, people. So stand by. We'll see you right in a minute. Right?
I hear robots in the future. We'll be right back.
Oh yeah.
Are you searching for clarity, guidance, and peace of mind? For nearly 50 years, Douglas James Cottrell has used his intuitive abilities to help people from all walks of life overcome challenges and make informed choices. During his clairvoyant consultations, Douglas helps you uncover the root causes of life's challenges, whether in relationships, health, or finances. He offers insights into your future and practical guidance to empower your decisions today. Available by phone, Skype, Zoom, or FaceTime, Douglas's consultations fit your schedule and lifestyle. Heal, evolve, be the person you were born to be. Book your clairvoyant consultation today with Dr. Douglas James Cottrell.
Welcome back, everyone. This is an exciting portion to our show. Les has been working very, very hard to work with the Oz, our producer behind the curtain here. And we're going to talk about something exciting. What are we going to look at here, Les?
We're going to be looking at robots who are actually able to play a primitive form of a football. And you can see how they kind of like, they look like toddlers almost, but it's not going to be too long before they continue to grow and evolve as learning machines. It's kind of creepy, if you ask me.
Oh my! Is there penalties? Do you get penalty shots, or what's going? Look at these guys! Oh my God! There's one that's sick.
But it's amazing how they can actually get up on their own, and they can find the ball. They know where they are in the field. They can interact with each other, and they're not very heavy. They can actually be picked up. But I mean, it's amazing how quickly the technology. And this is from college kids in China. So this is a major breakthrough. And I remember as a kid, I used to watch the Jetsons, and there was this one episode where they were playing football with robots, but it was the type of football that we play here in the United States. And on either side of the field, there was a coach that was running their specific team via automation. And here we are, not too long now, later, and then we actually have this actually occurring. My guess is once we get down the sports down, they're probably going to go for military application. What's your feeling on this, Doug?
Oh, come on. Everything's military here. I mean, they already have drones. They have pilotless jet planes that are flown by pilots who are sitting in a nice, comfortable little trailer somewhere or a bunker. This is beyond. I was looking at that, and your comment about like little kids playing soccer or football or whatever, they behave the same. But I saw a couple of them were trying to run, and their feet, their head got a little further ahead over their feet, and they fell down. So The question is, why are you doing this? If I was one of those athletic superstars, baseball, maybe that's next, soccer, hockey, I'd be kind of thinking, oh my God, am I going to be? They're all millionaires, right? They all have big money. That these guys, I'd be thinking, oh my God, is that the future? I can't see that. I hope not. But yeah, military application, no doubt, will be along. The drones are, if you understand, not if you understand, if you're aware of the power of drones, drones can be controlled by somebody sitting back behind the lines, flying with a little camera in front, directing the drone, and they can pick up and attack one soldier. They can go into an open carrier of military, or into a tank, or into a bunker. That's how effective they are. So you have one explosive device attached to each drone, and the drone, which is cheap to make, gets blown up and somebody perishes. So, okay, we know that. And I'd rather see that the technology is going to go now. And I think of that Will Smith movie, I, Robot, as I'm watching this. And for people who, it's a few years old now. And in that futuristic film, Will Smith played a cynical a police officer who didn't like, matter of fact, extremely suspicious of these robots, which were in everyday life. They were waitresses and waiters. They were attending people. They were, how can I be of service? Was, I think, their opening line to humans. And there were three rules. One being that they have to obey every order, and they have to obey to take care of everybody. And of course, they didn't. So somebody decided to show that they could be terrible to society. And then at the end of the picture, all the people are gone, and the only ones that are left are the robots. And so when these things are created, they're not going to wear out. I mean, they're going to be servants. It would be nice if they would do all the tasks we don't want to do, like farming, policing. Remember the day the earth stood still back when it was black and white?
Oh, yeah.
Remember that one with Tobar, the robot, which was the word robot spelled backwards, and that it was a 10-foot high solid metal robot that was a galactical policeman.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
the whole galaxy relied on these robots to be policemen because they couldn't be bought off or intimidated or whatever. Well, I was a young guy when I saw that, and I thought, that's amazing, that Tobar was this solid piece of metal walking around. But here we are. Are we looking at policemen in training here? Or I can't, I mean, you're asking intuitively what I see. I had a dream vision not too long ago where there was an issue where we were going to have to try to discern between the replica people and the real people. So my visions of the future usually come true. So that means that we're going to have replicas of ourselves, and we
Wow.
have to distinguish between the two somehow. Does that mean they're going to look really, really lifelike? Well, we have AI. We have these programs now where they can generate look-alike people. They can have the people talk, and the AI puts in the vocabulary and the sentences and words, and it's really hard to tell the difference. Apparently, it's not impossible, but it's, to the average eye, it's kind of difficult. But it's along the way of already having images like you and I being projected by AI. So, oh my God, yes, there's going to be those things in the future, but I can see these young pilots. They got a big prize for that, 80,000 yen or whatever it was.
Yeah.
I mean, I can see why they would be doing it, but then the people behind the scenes watching, like all these young guys do, they develop this new technology for free and try to win a prize. Meanwhile, somebody's gobbling it up or patenting it or doing something, I suspect, being cynical. But so what? What is the answer? And as we saw here, that was a pretty fun thing. But understand, Oz has another clip for us about McDonald's.
Yeah.
That one.
Robotic McDonald's. There's one in China, I believe, and there's another one located somewhere in Texas. And there was this one man, I was watching his little video. He went across the entire country in the United States and he sampled all of these different McDonald's. Some of them were robotic, some were human interaction occurred. And he was of the opinion that he did not really care for the AI McDonald's because he said they were having trouble dealing with understanding different accents. Now, the one they have in China, from what I understand, is simply you interact with an app. So there's no speaking to this restaurant or the AI at all. And it's very eerie when you go inside because there are no people. It's just totally automated. I guess somebody has to oversee the mechanisms and make sure everything that, the supplies are there. But
Well, baby steps, Les, where they're already implementing it. I mean, think about it. You're leaving your house to go down to a fast food place and you don't meet anybody. And it's like, why not just have it delivered to your door, right? But I wonder, I guess the logic behind that is these robots or these AI actuators, they don't need coffee breaks.
well,
They work 24/7.
yeah,
And I,
I mean, we've already, how long have we used them in car manufacturing now? I mean, for decades, right? I mean, these robots that do auto welding and which is pretty dangerous work for a human being. I mean, so they can do the more dangerous work. My thinking is if we can play sports with these things, why don't we use them for life-saving capability? Like if there's God forbid, a forest fire,
well
sending them
done.
in because they would be impervious to damage.
That's well done. Yes, that's exactly right. They could send them into fires, right? They would be asbestos coated, whatever. And I don't know if they would have like fire hoses or like the CO2 gas containers. Remember, they don't need to breathe, so they could have obnoxious gases that would put out the fire, like CO2, if that's correct. And then I was thinking as you were talking, they could go into rescue people who are in the water, like lifeguards, and also they could wrestle sharks.
Yeah, I mean, look at the people that die in mine accidents. I mean, they could literally send them into the mines. They could see them in all the smoke because they could have infrared, vision capability. They could locate. I mean, if they can locate a ball on a playing field, they can, use different types of apparatus to locate somebody in adverse conditions. I would think that would be the next natural step.
Here we are in the Soul Report giving the people out there in the world ideas and how they can use it. Like they could drive fire trucks. They could be able to shoot them, they jump off and they got hoses all over the place. They could drive right into the fire. Oh, look at this. Here we go. Robot Olympics.
Oh my God, look at this. They're actually running. Holy moly. I didn't know they could do that. Wow. That is that is really incredible. I didn't know they could. I didn't know they had mastered running by now.
Look at this.
Wow!
There are some winning the race.
Look at, oh my God!
Faster than the other ones. This one looks a little wobbly. Hold it! You're done.
Oh my God! That's incredible. That is really fun.
Oh,
What a riot!
look at that. He's going around again. Oh, that's
That was
amazing.
fascinating. Thank you, Jack. Yeah, so we have them in sports. So why not in life saving? I would think they make also great foot soldiers for. I mean, why bother throw people away when you can just send them into harm's way? And it's a myriad of things we could do with them. So, I mean, we could use them for space travel, for studying volcanism. I mean, there are people who have died on volcanoes being trying to take samples of different types of chemicals, and they could do it very easily. So, Scott,
Yeah.
the only downside is all these people that were working at McDonald's, they're out of work now. So, right
Here we go.
yeah, this
Here
is
we
the one
go.
that's in, I believe it's in Texas, and there are no people there except for the person that comes and makes sure that everything is supplied so the automation can actually work. But as I said, they have a little trouble with voice interaction. But this man who was doing this, he literally preferred human interaction. He said because he actually got a compliment on a shirt he wore, and he said, "Hell, I love compliments." So he said, "I'm a little prejudiced towards people, in favor of people." So, but I don't know. I just hope it doesn't put people out of work. When I was a kid working my way through college, I worked at the phone company. I was a janitor there, and we had about 15 people in the building. and 15 people went down to two because they brought in this massive computer.
It
Who
just
I saw that, and and there was two people, and they said the only reason we're air conditioning the building is for the machine, not for the people. So I thought, is this going to be replacing people who really need work? I don't know.
well, I let's you could see there at that last little bit of that clip that they obviously don't the food didn't pass the taste test. So, I mean, yeah, I mean, if you're a robot and you throw something on the grill and you take it off the grill and put it in there, there's no basic, like, oh, look, is it rare? Is it medium or well done or what? But look at this. I mean, I was thinking about this when COVID came along. There was a lot of what would you call it? Implementation of, handing things out, bags, because we didn't have this interaction. I wonder if that was kind of the start of what's going on here.
Yeah.
But again, fast food by robots, it's coming, right? Because they already have this thing. They have to work out the kinks. It's like, oh my God, we have driverless cars.
Mm.
You know,
Yeah.
if
Yeah.
you look at Arnold Schwarzenegger's shows or movies, think back. He had that trip to Mars and they had driverless taxis. Well, now we have one. We have cars that do that. And with the drones and whatever, we have now deliveries, people that drop packages off at your house. And it's kind of like where I live, there's legislation coming up about having drone highways in the air.
Wow.
Okay, that would be like the pilots have certain corridors in the air. Everybody from the North America goes to Europe at night, so they go from west to east, and everybody from Europe the next day goes from Europe to the west in the daytime, and so they don't have head-on collisions, if you will. Is that what we're going to have with drone highways in the neighborhood?
Yeah, I remember watching the movie Back to the Future. They made two or three of them, and you see these highways in the sky, these cars zipping by, just like the Jetsons, I guess, too. I guess it would be possible. The tech guy I listen to, who comes on GBH every year, usually twice a year, and they asked him about the flying cars. He said, we already have them. He said, the FAA has already approved of them. He said, but because of human error, they don't allow a lot of them into the sky. He said they would have to be probably controlled via AI to be safe. And he said it is possible. It's just a matter of time before they implement it.
Yeah, I've seen them, the prototypes where they're like drones, and in the middle of the drone there would be like a compartment where people could sit, four people, and one person or several people. So they're already out there, and instead of having four propellers, they have eight, and so they're quite maneuverable. They're stick oriented, or maybe they're computer directed. So we already have them. And I'm thinking, oh my God, like now the good side of that for all us good Samaritans out there, I'm saying, look at all that land that we can reclaim, get rid of all those highways and byways
Yeah, wow. Yeah.
and grow food on them and things like that. Oh,
I
okay.
remember watching this. There was an article years ago. It was in Popular Mechanics, and before all this AI came out, they were thinking of delivering people across the country via pneumatic tube. Just imagine you get in the tube and shoop, you're off.
Yeah, yeah. Well, anyway, the way the world's going, like, I mean, from my father was born in 1910 to here I am in 2025. The world has changed. We have men on the moon. We've had landers devising. We got a helicopter on Mars. I've also seen that we have landed on Venus. The Russians had 10 different attempts, and they now have pictures of Venus. And the temperatures and the gravity is so difficult there. Like I can't remember, 500 degrees or something on the surface, but we have pictures of other planets. Now, that's only what we know. I didn't know about the Venus one until recently. Have we gone and landed on Pluto? Has the Voyager that's still going, has it bumped into some other race out there? I'm a little nervous that, we send out these vehicles and what's the reception going to be like at the other end? Where'd
Yeah,
that
even
come
Stephen.
from?
Yeah,
You know?
well, you got a good point because even Stephen Hawking, he said, you sure you want to let people know where you are? But I think the farthest planetary body we landed on so far is the largest moon in Saturn, which I think is Titan. I think we did land on Titan. You can actually see that on YouTube. It's intriguing to watch that. But yeah, who knows where? All I know is I hope we're going to a good place and we continue to help people with it.
Yeah,
That's
well,
the,
as somebody Nostradamus said, in the future, he had a vision where people were talking to bricks.
really.
He did.
Wow. Oh my God, that's cool. A brick. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's a brick.
it's a brick. And there was another one where he saw people, he called them the pig men. It was humans with a mask on, and he called them, they look like a snout. And that was the World War II fighters in England. They had
Oh,
these
that's right.
masks on,
That's
and they,
right.
were, and
Yeah.
they looked like they were wearing snouts. So my friends, if you're out there and you're talking about this in the chat, it's like images that he didn't know what it was. He didn't know that this was a phone and that people would have phones. He just saw a square thing and it looked black and it looked like a brick. So he said what it was. That was
Oh,
hundreds of years ago. And so the images that you see in prophecy,
wow.
you got to watch jumping to conclusions. I do that sometimes when I see some event that's going to happen in the world. I kind of think, well, it's going to happen in this place and that place because they're at war. And then lo and behold, it's at another place that's going to start or is starting a war. But you're seeing something and you're trying to, in your mind, recognize it. And we have a tendency to, like this phone, who knows? He wouldn't possibly understand that we would have such devices as phones. So he called it a brick. He could have called it a stone, or maybe he did. I don't know. But the point is that when we see these things in the future, like these robots, and my vision of in the future, we're going to have some difficulty discerning between the replicate people and the real people. That's, that's how lifelike it's going to go. That's how these inventors go. They don't stop.
Mm.
Right? They get an idea. They have these athletic robots. I mean, they got in the back of their mind have some idea of where they want to go. And of course, it's fun now. But what if we're developing a police force that's going to be robotic? What if we're developing rescue people like fire, police, ambulance? What if?
Mm.
That's where it's probably going to go. However, things might change, and the internet, which I've seen, is going to be locked up in the future. I had a vision that the cloud is going to be locked up. So beware, my friends.
Oh, wow.
Store your data on one of those external hard drives on your desk. Don't depend on the cloud because one day it's going to be locked up and it won't work.
Wow. Okay. That's interesting.
You can all talk about that in the chat and say, "Hey, this old guy's crazy. That's never going to happen." But when it does, maybe maybe I'll be dust. Okay.
Well, I was just talking to a friend of mine today who's a content creator, and he said the trouble with when you put things in the cloud, if you read the fine print, they say we own your stuff. So you really there's no. And his wife is a photographer, and she said, I don't, there's no master prints. There's no negative. It's all digital work. Matter of fact, I was just talking to a fellow, a client of mine who's an artist, and she's lost stuff that that she has actually saved on some of these websites. The prints just disappeared, and I said, "Do you have any master print?" And she goes, "No, it's just gone." Oh boy.
Okay,
Yeah.
there you go. You've heard it on the Soul Report Live, my friends. Have a hard copy, whatever
Yeah.
that means. Like print it out.
Yeah, I
Have
have some kind of that's the trouble. But even with digital art, the digital artist is saying there's no master painting. It's all digital now. So
Yeah.
yeah, I guess we got to look for that.
Well, I think people being people, they'll always be artists. And remember always the pendulum swings one way and the pendulum swings back. And we went from an agricultural society with horsepower, real horses, and and organic food. It was made without chemicals and things. And we've gone
Hmm.
all this way, and now we're coming back, and more people are growing gardens in their back, and more people are going back to the old ways. So
Right.
it's the same as we move forward. with all this AI stuff. I mean, somebody in the future can just say, some politician say, no more, we're stopping it. And they throw the little switch, and all these interconnected mechanical beings are turned off.
Yeah.
So remember,
Mm.
Skynet and Arnold Schwarzenegger and Terminator may happen,
Oh boy.
may happen, but they eventually, humans, as we know, humans figured out a way how to get around that tragedy after a lot of, ruckus. But anyway, if you have important stuff, keep them on a hard drive. And remember, Bitcoin and virtual money can disappear in a flash. If you can't access your account, you're broke. So
Mm.
keep some cash, have a shoebox, have a safe, have a hole in the wall, but for a rainy day, just in case that eventuality happens. I've been saying for years, save some silver coins, gold coins, copper slugs now, different things of value, stones, jewels, semi-precious stones. You should all have a little. All the ancient societies always had that.
Mm.
There was always wealth in the house. Matter of fact, back in the Depression days, there were people alive when I was younger who never trusted the banks because of what happened in the Depression. And so you have to be the same thing. When you give your money away from you, you have no control over it anymore. And the whole idea is to get that control over and have portable wealth, precious stones,
Mm.
coins, and things like that. Word to the wise. And if you're in the chat, let me know what you think about that. Are you big on bitcoins? Because when think about this, Les, everybody say, "Wow, the Bitcoin is worth $1,200 now." Yeah, 1,200 what? Dollars. Okay, so you bought the Bitcoin, and now what are you going to do? You're going to sell it and get the dollars, right? So somehow that does not compute. You're getting a currency that's imaginary, it's on the internet, and then you're going to wait till it goes up, and they go up a lot, and then you're going to cash in and get the dollars. Okay, I understand that you're trying to make money, but you're trying to get the dollars so you can have the money, like real money, as wealth. So it's not like crypto's going to go forever, and you can buy it and sell it and trade it. I understand. I don't do that myself, but keep in mind that it's all based on money, gold or silver or property. So convert it. I think the term's called conversion, and get some real property. So anyway, enough about that. So well, it's going to be long before it'll keep on going long after I'm not here. So I'm not going to worry too much about it. What's next on the list here?
Well, after a short break, we'll be back with the time machine. And we'll be speaking about something very mysterious that nobody usually talks about.
Are you searching for clarity, wisdom, and a deeper understanding of the spiritual world around you? Meet Douglas James Cottrell, PhD, a visionary author and teacher who's helped countless people transform their lives. His books are a gateway to profound insights, offering guidance, inspiration, and the tools you need to unlock your full potential. From unlocking your intuition to discovering spiritual truths, Douglas's books are your trusted companions on the path to personal growth. Don't wait. Start your journey today. Visit his website douglasjamescottrell.com to explore and purchase his life-changing work. Your next breakthrough is just a page away. Get ready for the time machine. Join Dr. Douglas James Cottrell and Les Hubert as they dive into history's greatest mysteries, untold facts, and curious events. It's time to journey through the unknown, right here on the Soul Report Live.
So we hear a lot about Atlantis. Many psychics and sages have mentioned Atlantis. Many books have been written about it, but nobody really talks about Lemuria, or Mu, as some people refer to it. We know it was somewhere in the Pacific, but we really don't know what happened to it, Doug. What became of Lemuria?
Well, Lemuria is described as a vast land or continent that existed a long, long time ago, often believed to have been located in the Pacific Ocean, and you've alluded to the land of Mu or Og, as those continents were known at the time. The idea first appeared in the 19th century when scientists were trying to explain the distribution of lemurs and other species in distant lands. Animals were traveling. Where'd they come from? Over
Mm.
time, spiritual and occult writers expanded the concept to mythological civilizations such as Atlantis. Now, my friend and teacher Ross Peterson and Edgar Casey spoke about this, that you know these this land in the Pacific was a wonderful place. There was no money. Everybody had a wonderful, life living from the surrounding areas. It was one of the earliest great civilizations predating Atlantis. So the people were more spiritually advanced. They
Oh,
lived in harmony, and they were guided by higher consciousness. They're kind of like the Titans and the Aztecs and the Egyptians. They were kind of like influenced by the lands in Lemuria. Many traditions describe them as graceful beings and deeply connected to the earth with mystical telepathic abilities. They live close to nature. So they were actually like the first, if I can say this, hippies. They were like hanging around, they were like having fun, they were letting life go by. But some of the remnants of Lemuria are Hawaii and Easter Island. They were also parts of present-day Polynesia and Australia, and even extended towards India, because that Pacific Ocean is gigantic. It's just, and you look at it, and there is absolutely nothing there. There's some islands in the little teeny ones in the south, and there's some little mountain tops that we call Hawaii. And then, of course, Japan and the Ring of Fire, which is all of the coastline of Japan and the countries in the east, and then the west coast of North America.
mm.
They all were part of it. California, as we understand it, was part of Lemuria. And there's no other place in the world like California. It is a land all by itself. It
Mm.
is so strange. Well, strange, unusual. I mean, you could look at Australia and say the same thing. Australia and North
Mm.
and South or New Zealand,
Sure.
islands unto themselves. There's no other place in there. So as we look towards that, there's location that remnants like places like Mount Sasha in California. I used to listen to a radio station there, and I drove by it, but I never got to go up the mountain when I was visiting California years ago. But apparently, when Lemuria suffered a catastrophic episode, just like Atlantis, the whole continent went down. And Ross Peterson once said that Peru was part of Lemuria, and Lemuria was in a westerly direction. So Peru, with all those those Nasha lines, and they have those in Peru, they have those what's up in the mountain there, those gosh, what are
Yeah, they
they?
call them isn't the Nazca lines? They
Yeah,
look like runways, and they have those large hieroglyphic, like the spider and the man, or the different. You couldn't even realize what they were until you saw them from space or from a great height.
yeah,
Those are remnants of Lemuria.
yeah, and again, uh, it would be a huge continent
Oh
that
wow.
was in the Pacific Ocean that stretched. Again, there was one time where North America was underwater, and North and South America, and then if you look at South America, and you see that little bulge on Brazil, and you kind of look over at Africa, they kind of just come together perfectly.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I did
Yeah.
see that there was a rock that was split in the middle, down the middle. One half was in South America, and the other half was in Africa. Somebody found these rocks. It was the same rock cut in half, split in
Wow.
half, I should say. So, so what if that was attached South America into Africa, and it made up this continent, maybe Pan or whatever, and then in the west there was this huge continent that was called Lemuria, with the land of Mu and Og. And what if, when it went down, the continents of South America and Africa split? Okay,
Wow.
that's my personal submission. just for intuition speaking. So it would make sense that as the Pacific went down, the South American continent split away from Africa, naturally because the world was splitting apart. But Lemuria sank beneath the ocean following, like I'm saying, these cataclysmic events. And so maybe the Rocky Mountains were born at the same time, where as
Mm.
the shelves go down in the Pacific and they push up towards the easterly coast of North America, and you have the Rocky Mountains from Alaska all the way down to well, I don't as far as Latin America and maybe a little into South America. So,
Mm.
people say, what has survived? Well, there's Easter Island, for instance, but the spiritual memory carried forward, like the kahunas in Hawaii. That was a very unusual religion from, religious traditional things. I mean, it was all there out by itself in Hawaii.
Hmm.
They have traditions, and the kahunas believe that thoughts are in a materialized area where it's like a sandstorm. And in that cloud of movement, thoughts take shape. And as they coagulate or create critical mass, they kind of drop down into the mental realms and in the minds of people, and then from that into the hands of people, and whatever that thought was created in that mind is produced. You know, it's kind of okay. That makes sense. You form a thought in the mind, and then somebody gets the idea of making an invention, and then they actually work on it. They try to make it with their hands, and then they rework it, and finally they have this invention that, oh my God, now we have a canoe with with a log on the side, and we won't fall over. And but there was always this longing for travel, and many of the people in the Pacific were going about looking to connect with other native people, because when it went down, there were islands all over the place,
Oh.
and people had migrated from Lemuria eastward. And as such, that's where the thing or the thoughts are, or some people are putting forward that that's where the highly advanced beings who lived on this vast continent of Lemuria, when they migrated, or they were, when they, I guess they become refugees, they migrated eastwardly. And there's some remnants about sayings about there were these people coming in ships, steel ships or something from the west.
Oh,
And as
wow.
such, these people migrated from Lemuria onto North America, and the North American continent was well populated with Native Americans, Indians, and tribes long before the Europeans showed up, who brought diseases to them, and basically catastrophic sickness happened and wiped out most of the people in North America anyway. That's so the story
Mhm.
goes. But the point being is that it's a migration, and even into Atlantis, and then from Atlantis into Egypt. So think about it. The societies in Egypt or Central America are similar, and they are similar to I'm not going to say they are the same, but they're similar in some ways to the kahunas that now survived in Hawaii.
Oh,
Interesting.
wow. Wow. So, did Lemuria coexist with Atlantis? Did they actually overlap for a while before they went down?
The theory is kind of like you're asking me. I think it was Lemuria was the place, and then Atlantis was a secondary place. It's kind of like they didn't. They. I think it was a matter where Lemuria, when it went down, Atlantis came up.
So
Okay.
we have Atlantis was they said that was the home of the red race. So Lemuria was the home of the brown race? Is that what the
No,
source?
no, no. I think you could look at the remnants of the society in Hawaii.
Hmm. The Polynesians, yeah.
Yeah, that's it. They were the same.
Oh, wow.
They probably were red race or red in color, and that's why the Native Americans were maybe the same. Although I understand there's a theory that the North American Indians were the lost tribes of Israel that migrated from
Wow.
Israel when there was the 12 when the 12 tribes were fighting. A lot of them, Dan and Benjamin, the tribes moved north, and they went across Africa, and they made their way up to the UK, and became the early Britons, if you will. The
Oh,
only
wow.
and wherever they went, the tribe of Dan would name landmarks after their tribe, and that's why you'll find from Israel going northwest, you'll find many rivers are named have the prefix of Dan in them, and so
Oh,
that's kind of like a historical, domino effect. So, and then when they went to England, there was, this we're getting into now conspiracy theories as to why the Great Crusades happened, because the Crusaders in England were actually trying. They were the ancient tribes of Israel going back to claim the land back in Jerusalem. The Great Crusades. That was the impetus for them to do them. But I digress. I mean, that's a story for another show. But the
hmm.
idea is that this great society of Lemuria, where it was just plain and simple pleasure all the time, no fighting, no money, no land acquisition, and they were higher learning, culture, philosophy, things like that. The spiritual memory carried forth into theosophy, and the New Age has gone back and channeled information from these sacred sites. Easter
Hmm.
Island and Hawaii and the Andes are thought to hold Lemurian energy, if you will, or remnants. And Mount
Ah,
Sasha, many mystics believe that it's an inner city of the Lemurians, and still beneath the mountains in California, there are ancient Lemurians living in peace, waiting for humanity's awakening. Hmm.
hmm.
Like the thing about Atlantis and these other places, they knew it was coming. They knew there was catastrophic things coming because they were elevated, they were aware, they were intuitive, they were smart. Uh, the more I find about ancient India, we found out they had advanced mathematics. They had ships that flew through the air. They had batteries and weapons, and people even go further to say that they were inspired by beings who and they visit them from other off-world places. Well,
Wow.
what if Lemuria was the place where that happened to start with? Again, the NASA lines, Mount Picchu, Picchu, and things like that. Like we don't know what happened 5,000, 10,000, 30,000 years ago. We don't know as humans, we don't know our origins or where we came from. We don't know how we first came here. But if you go back to the ancient Vedas and the oldest society in the world in India, there's lots of explanations. And this whole thing about looking at rock formations where they built temples out of rocks, and you can't even put a credit card between
Yeah,
the.
well, yeah, that's incredible.
Yeah, well, the theory is they knew how to melt rock.
Wow.
Yeah,
Well, that makes kind of sense. And when you look at how tightly packed they're together.
yeah, and it's they melt the rock, they formed it, they had tools that would cut holes in it and things like that. These are all, you can go on AI and the internet and find TikTok, and you find these things. Now, you got to do it with a sort of a skeptical mind that some of these things are hoaxes, but a lot of them are not. They're famous. They've been in existence, and more recently, people are being able to use AI, are able to ascertain that they were machined, that these devices, these rocks, whatever, are the same all over the world. The same rock formations. Have you ever noticed those rock formations? They're like odd shape and they fit together
Hmm. Yeah.
all over the world. How did that happen all over the world that was going to be that? Well, not, I'm asking it rhetorically, but the DNA and soul memory, as some of the metaphysical teachers claim, that people today have strong spiritual intuition of healing and gifts to carry on from Lemuria's soul lineage. So maybe, people today can remember. If you had dreams like it would be ancient Persia or someplace, there was, I've not been to Hawaii myself, but I would like to go there because I think I could pick up a little of that advanced society. What do the people in the chat have to say? Anybody out there been to Hawaii and have discovered any mystical things of the great kahunas and the teachings back in the day? I mean, they were was a society that was very peaceful and loving. The same in the Polynesians, the same tranquility. There was no competitive sports. There wasn't football. There might have been canoe racing, and I mean, the great chief comes out and says, "Okay, the good news is it's a holiday. The bad news is the chief wants to go water skiing. You 300 guys get out there." They had surfboards. I know the surfboards were like 14 or 18 feet long, and they were like big planks, right?
Yeah.
So,
It reminds me of the movie. I don't know if you ever saw the movie Mutiny on the Bounty, and Captain Cook, and he was supposed to get some breadfruit, and they ended up landing in Tahiti, and the people were Polynesian, and they were so friendly and loving, and these hardcore sailors fell in love with the women, and they didn't want to leave. They said, "This is paradise. We're not going. We're staying here." So
that's the word, paradise. Yeah, yeah. I mean,
wow.
think about it. No taxes,
Yeah.
no loans. Everything you need. You walk over to a tree and you grab a pineapple. You take a spear and you got a fish. And every night, it's like barbecue on the beach. And if you like each other, well, you disappeared in the bushes. And, everybody was having a wonderful time. What kind of life would that be? Paradise.
Yeah, I mean, the authorities had to come back and drag the men back to England when they it took them years to get back there, but they dragged them back to England and they were held in trial. But
Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
they didn't want to leave because they said the people were so lovely and gentle and there was nothing to do but eat, sleep, and drink and be merry. They said, what a wonderful life.
Yeah, sure beats being on some little ship with scurvy and
Ooh,
somebody cracking a whip over your back and, like getting seasick and going back to some, place in England that wasn't exactly clean, anyway. So we can fantasize about that. But what do our friends say on the chat? We should have some questions coming up here now in the question and answer period. What are you saying out there, my friends? What's your comments about tonight? What do you think about robotic athletes and robotic food stores and fast food places? And what do you know about Lemuria? It's one of the most fascinating continents or historical accounts of the Earth changes back in the day. The Earth has changed, according to Edward Casey, 5 times. There have been catastrophes that almost wiped out everybody.
hmm.
And we're apparently headed towards another one. So, again, probably not going to be in our lifetime, but again, what do you think about this? What's on the chat? So let's ask the producer, are you looking at any of the chat that we have now, Les? Any questions?
Oh yeah, we've got one from it's from Luke Carpenter. It's a rather lengthy one. Basically, could the Ten Commandments, traditionally seen as divine commands given to Moses, be a mistranslation or intentional reframing? Given God's emphasis on free will, is it possible that these were not strict rules, but rather characteristics or descriptors of God's people? For example, instead of "thou shalt not steal," might God have been saying, "My people, don't steal, don't murder, love me, and love their neighbors as themselves," offering examples of what it looks like to live rightly as his chosen rather than imposing commands that seem to conflict with free will?
Well, rules always conflict with free will. That's why they're called rules. It would be better to call them guidelines. But here's the difference between man's law and spiritual law. Man's law is the letter of the law. God's law, the spiritual law, is the justice of the law. So, in order to control ancient civilizations, which it was perfectly lawful to kill each other, rules were set down. And I think, again, going back 5,000 years or whenever, looking back, what language was Moses speaking when God communicated to him? Well, Moses was an Egyptian.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. Yeah, he was.
So maybe he was being shown tablets of hieroglyphs. I don't
Oh,
know. I wasn't there. I don't remember being there. I don't remember being down at the foot of Mount Sinai. But the question is asked in the contemporary time. I agree that there could have been these, my people don't steal, don't kill each other, don't do this, don't do that. But at that point in society, however, it was established because the entire religious view that Moses brought forward was built upon one thing. You know what that is, Les?
hmm.
My friends, you know what that's out there? The entire Jewish faith, as we understand it now, and I'm not Jewish, and I don't want to propose that I'm an authority, but from my teeny tiny perspective, is the entire Jewish faith was established on Moses seeing a burning bush.
Wow, really?
Think about it. You don't have to be a scholar to have that opinion, but it was Moses had a religious perspective. He was highly trained. He was going to be Pharaoh, was he not?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, yeah.
So he was highly educated in the Book of the Dead, the Egyptian theology, symbolism, etc., etc. Okay. So he has this awakening and he decides not to become the Pharaoh anymore because he has connections to the Hebrew people. And for whatever reason, he gave it all up and he became the prophet of the Hebrew people. And he let my people go. His mission was to free them from the enslavement of Egypt and take them to the promised land, which nobody really seemed to know where it was. It ended up to be in Syria, actually, after when they left. However, they went and took the spoils of Egypt, all these slaves and people who were, under the whip of the Egyptian people at the time, and they left. And where did they go? Well, they went down to the Red Sea and they found a way to cross over. Apparently, there was a land bridge that popped up underneath it, and it's still remnants of that to this day. But when he went up to Mount Sinai, he was called up to the mountain, and there he had this communication with the divine, in which there was a burning bush that wasn't consumed. And then he came down with these commandments. Again, now we're going from an Egyptian mystical temple priest kind of knowledge, about to be Pharaoh, the most highly trained metaphysically, to this middle land now of combining the prophecies of the Hebrew people, that they were looking for the Messiah and things like that, to the point where he comes down with the Ten Commandments. Now, I had it from somebody else tell me there were actually 144 commandments. There
Wow,
wasn't just 10. But
that's a
we're
lot of
we're
commandments.
not on the inside of that, okay? We're just on the Christians have this 10 commandments, which kind of is like a skeleton overview on how to be a decent person. Don't commit adultery, don't steal, don't overindulge, and covet your neighbor's property, including his animals and his wife. So that was for that society at that point in time. Jesus came along and he said Moses was known as the lawgiver, and they strictly followed the letter of the law. And Jesus came along and said, I'm here with compassion, and it's the spirit of the law. So that if somebody was doing something on the Sabbath, meaning the day off, you didn't stone them to death. Okay?
Right,
Jesus himself
right.
was accused when there was that story about the cripple at the well, and he went over and he healed him. The man got up and he picked up his cot, and Jesus said to him, "Look, you've been made whole. God has blessed you. Go your way, but don't tell anybody anything." It's there. It says, he tells him, "Don't tell."
I remember.
And what does the man do? He walks down the street. He's got his cot under his arm. My God, he's been years on his back. Now he's walking on. People came up and said, "Wait a minute. Hey," whatever his name would be, uh, "weren't you the guy at the well? I mean, what's going on here? You're walking." And he said, "Blah, blah, 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 blah." that guy, Emmanuel or the son of Joseph, because he wasn't called Jesus at the time, he healed me. And instead of everybody in the local church going, hooray, they said, well, wait a minute.
He's
It's
working
a
on a Sunday.
Sabbath. You can't do that. And they wanted to know where, the Christ was at because they wanted to stone him. They wanted to kill him. He was working on the Sabbath. That's a true story. If you read it in the book, it's there. And the point being is that the letter of the law would be, you were working on Saturday, so you should get whipped or stoned or beat. That keeps people in line, unfortunately, from those people who now are now in the temples, who make a living being in the temples and then being, let's say, tyrannical to the people, enforcing these laws. But the point is that the compassion of Christ with the spirit of the law was like, who among you? I think there's a story that somebody tells in the Bible is that who among you, if your animal fell in a hole, which was they called a hellier, or that's where the term hell comes from, by the way. Who
Oh,
among you, if your donkey would fall in a hole on the Sabbath, wouldn't try to rescue the animal? Who would wait until the next day and let the animal die? Nobody. And so that was the counter to that letter of the law versus the spirit of the law. So getting to the question here, it's a long answer, but it's very important that we don't need to, we should take into consideration that Moses was an Egyptian. We don't know what language the tablets were put into. I know there's people who are of the Jewish faith are going to correct me on that because they know more than I do. But from my perspective in answering this question, it's like those were the spirit of the law and how we can live in harmony. I mean, if somebody hurts your family, you're going to hurt their family back. And there was trying to get this away from hurting people because it was your duty to go and do so. But I hope that answers the question. Got another one.
no, that's we're going to wrap up the show, Doug.
Well,
Any final comments on Moses? And a lot of people don't realize that he was Egyptian. That was a huge leap of faith for him to take in order to leave one religion and go to another. That must have been really traumatic for that poor
no,
thing.
it wasn't a leap of faith.
It wasn't.
God was with him. Remember, when the ancient people, the higher you go up in their priesthood, the closer you get to understand God. And he was highly trained
Oh,
in the works of the divine. But I'm going to interrupt you because last week we promised people the answer to riddle me this. So what was the riddle last week, and what was the answer?
the last week was I forget. Actually, I
Okay,
forget.
it was a number one. Take a number away or something like that. Take
Right.
one.
If you take an odd number, if it is an odd number, if you take two letters away, it ends up being no. If you take an even number and you take two letters away, it ends up odd.
There you go. So that was the answer last week. This week, before we go, we have riddle me this. What's the riddle this week, Les?
If when is a door not a door?
I don't know. When's a door not a door? I don't know.
When it is a jar.
Ah, okay.
And sound the trumpets. Anyway,
Da-da-da-da.
thank you, Doug. Any final thoughts on the show?
Where's the applause with our sound effects from our producer here? So anyway, do we have any more questions? There we go. Yay. Okay.
Well, just wrapping it up, we're going to let people know in our upcoming shows, we're going to be talking about the Bermuda Triangle. Nikola Tesla, was he possibly an extraterrestrial? And what is going on in the moon right now? There seems to be some very interesting footage happening up there that is being filmed as we speak. So if you want to tune in next week, we shall partake of that.
I just thought of it, Les. We can have these robotic people playing soccer on the moon
There you go.
or doing other things that humans can't do on the moon, like farming and mining and stuff like that. Okay, until next week, my friends, remember you're listening to Les and I here. We're having a lot of fun tonight, and what we're looking forward to is having you. Ring that bell and so you'll get a notice when we're on next time please like us and tell all your friends about this show. It's called the Soul Report Live, and it's Les Hubert and myself, Dr. Douglas James Cottrell, along with our producer, Jack Balak, who are bringing this to you. That's our Soul Report Live for this Monday night, August the 25th, 2025. Thank you for joining us on this journey of discovery and higher understanding. Remember, your soul is eternal. You live forever. Your choices now shape your destiny. And love is the greatest power of all. If you found tonight's discussion meaningful, please share this show with your friends and family, and don't forget to subscribe so you'll never miss being part of our show on the Soul Report Live. Until we meet again, keep your light shining bright, keep your faith strong, and may the peace of the divine be with you always. Good night, and God bless.
And as a